Here is the path for Indiana to get the biggest win of Curt Cignetti's career.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. Big game picks. I will try again for my best bets. I am a glutton for punishment, I guess, because I'm going back to the well and looking for a winning week. I don't even remember the last time I had one of those. It has happened. I don't really remember it. All in today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Like the players of your favorite team, Mazda sweats every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Indiana is going for arguably the biggest win in program history on Saturday. They go to Autzen Stadium. It's the game day game, top 10 showdown. And you look at the point spread. According to our friends at FanDuel, and Oregon's favored by 7.5 points. Now, that's a lot. And I do think Oregon's going to win the game. There is absolutely a path for Indiana to go win it. Because some people, me, are pretty bullish on Indiana after their win against Illinois. I know what they are capable of. Illinois is a good team, not a great team. And Indiana beat them 63-10. Can you imagine if a brand bigger than Indiana beat a then top 10 team 63-10? Imagine what you would hear coming out of the SEC. Imagine if Alabama, imagine if Georgia beat a top 10 team 63-10. But Indiana doesn't get that credit, so they're looking for some legitimacy. They're looking for some credibility here that they deserve but don't have just yet because they haven't beaten a Tier 1 program in college football. So here's your chance. Here's your chance, Curt Cignetti, and here's your blueprint. Your blueprint starts with quarterback pressure going both ways. If you get both of those boxes checked in your direction, there's a good chance Indiana does win the football game. You need to do other things well. You can't let Oregon's crowd get going. You want to get off to a good start. You don't want to come out on offense and go 3 and out. That wouldn't be good. That wouldn't be good. Things could snowball like they did in the other direction for Illinois. They got down early and things snowballed. So for Oregon, they have done a great job this year. Not just the offensive line, keeping Dante Moore upright. He's been sacked one time this year through 5 games. Once. Both these teams are coming off byes. So you're going to have some fresh, hungry defensive players. Indiana's defense has generated 49 tackles for loss. They have made 49 plays in 5 games behind the line of scrimmage. Be it sacks or bringing down a running back or receiver. That's an astonishing number. That's about 10. Let's say the stat people got it wrong and it's actually 50. And they're averaging 10 tackles per loss per game. You realize how many that is? 2.5 times per quarter. Indiana is making a play behind the line of scrimmage with their defense. It is one of the most underrated units in all of college football. Now, this Oregon offense is not to be trifled with. They are balanced, they are deep, and they have the current betting favorite to win the Heisman Trophy at quarterback in Dante Moore. They're coming off of a bye. DeCorian Moore, their true freshman number 1 wide receiver, lives up to the billing. He was their leading receiver in the big win a couple of weeks ago against Penn State. And on the Oregon side, they're looking to... We'll see how Dan Lanning motivates his team. There is an angle that has been discussed of, hey, since Penn State lost, does Oregon need a big win? Yeah, sure. Kind of. I think it's more about how Oregon broke Penn State mentally, but let's bring this back to Indiana. Dante Moore's been sacked 1 time this year. That is a function of the offensive line is playing well. I don't think they're playing perfectly, but Dante Moore is getting them in the right protections. He's not running himself into sacks. He's getting out of would-be sack situations. And yes, it is a veteran talented group that has meshed really from the time this season kicked off. So you have to be able to pressure Dante Moore. You give him time with his legs and with his arm and the weapons that he has. There is not a defense in the country that is going to be able to contain him in the Oregon offense. So you have to get pressure on Dante Moore. Flip around to the other side. Fernando Mendoza rolls into Autzen Stadium for the second time in his career. with a team that is significantly better than the one he had with the Cal Bears back in 2023. Yes, he's been here before. And there's rain in the forecast. There was rain that day at Autzen Stadium. Final score was Oregon 63, Cal 19. Mendoza was 18 of 34 passing with an interception and a fumble. He was under a lot of pressure. Oregon had 7 pass deflections in that game. 3 of them were by defensive linemen, and 1 of them was by a linebacker. That was what drove the Oregon defense to have success. They were generating pressure. Mendoza gets the ball out of his hand very quickly. So whoever wins those battles, and I think Indiana has to win it going both ways. I don't think they can seesaw back and forth. I don't think they can be neutral. That front 7 has to be able to pressure Dante Moore, and then they have to keep Fernando Mendoza comfortable in the pocket, so that you can get Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper going on the perimeter with their RPO game in particular. It's where Mendoza is really comfortable. It's where I think he's really lethal. And he's made some good throws down the field this year. I don't think he is a check down merchant by any stretch of the imagination. This Indiana offense isn't built that way. I just think it is what makes them really, really dangerous. But if you tell me right now, hey, like if a time traveler comes from the future and says, hey, Spencer, Dante Moore wasn't sacked in the Oregon-Indiana game. Oregon's going to win. Hey, Spencer, Fernando Mendoza was sacked 3 times and pressured a lot more than that. Oregon's going to win the game. This is an Oregon defensive line that went on the road to Penn State against a veteran group that I know they didn't have their best game all the time against UCLA. They did score, 37 points or so on the road? Make of that whatever you'd like. It's a veteran group that returns most of their starters from last year, and Oregon's defensive line went and controlled the game. They kept Penn State's running game in check, and they pressured Drew Aller a heck of a lot. And I think Drew Aller and Fernando Mendoza have comparable levels of mobility, which is to say it can be a part of their game. It is definitely not a feature. They are most well suited to beat you from the pocket. That Indiana offensive line has to keep Mendoza clean. And yeah, you want to be able to run the ball, have some balance, make the play action RPO game that much more dangerous. But if Indiana does not get any pressure on Dante Moore, I know the Hoosiers defense is good. I know D'Angelo Pons is a great corner. I know they've got playmakers at all 3 levels. I have sung the praises of the Indiana defense all week leading up to this game, but I just don't see how at Autzen Stadium you can get away against this Oregon defense that is off of a bye. It's first of the year. This is the most rested they've been at any point in the season. They've been playing very well. I don't see how you go and get into a 38-35 shootout in that environment and win. You've got to pressure Dante Moore. You've got to keep Fernando Mendoza upright. That is the path to an upset for Indiana and what would be arguably their biggest win in the history of Hoosiers football. I think Oregon wins. Our friends at FanDuel have the line at 7.5 points. I think they'll cover that 27-17. I think the Ducks get it done. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all that good stuff. More big game picks coming. I'm going to pick it. I already did this week. I'm going to pick another upset too. You just got to stick around. First, this episode brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend, time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Let's talk about who can deliver this weekend. Arch Manning can deliver a season-saving win for the Texas Longhorns. Fernando Mendoza at Indiana could deliver a season-altering win in the best way for Indiana this Saturday. Those are guys who fans are looking to give big performances and deliver in a big moment, just like DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. This episode also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season's here, and FanDuel has an offer you just don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And all the games that I talk about here that I'm about to bring up in my big game picks and with my best bets later, they're all available over at FanDuel. And if you want some free money, just go fade my picks. I'm giving you a way to make money. I'm telling you, I haven't been able to figure it out. If I do, you got to say, hey, Good job, Spencer. But until then, fade the picks, and odds are, so far, you're going to make money. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Check them out at FanDuel.com. BYU travels down to the desert this week to take on Arizona. I told BYU fans earlier this week, you got to be careful. You got to be on high alert for what can happen. Crazy things can transpire in the desert. They have. Maybe not for a while for the Wildcats. It's been kind of a lifeless program since Jed Fish left. Brent Brennan has a chance to change that. You beat undefeated and ranked BYU. That is a landmark win. What do I always talk about with new coaches? They are looking for that flagship moment, that banner moment. Plant the flag emotionally because, that can get kind of ugly on the field. Look for those sorts of moments throughout the early part of their tenure to let their team, themselves, the fans, the donors, community, everybody know, hey, we got some here. We're okay. Missed opportunity last time out for Arizona when they took on Iowa State. It didn't go very well. Well, Iowa State's a better team. But guess what? You got BYU coming to town, and you got a chance. Now, BYU fans, we have a tradition. We have an arrangement. It's been a pretty fruitful one for the Cougars over the last couple of years. Every time I pick BYU to win and win big, it at least gets scary. Last time I staked my claim in BYU's winning big, they scraped by Colorado and trailed by 2 possessions against a Buffs team we'll talk about a little bit later on in this segment. So, you know what? Give me the upset. Give me Arizona to knock off BYU, give them their first loss of the season. This is where the schedule gets tough for the Cougars. On the back half, they have cruised mostly through the first part of it. But Arizona, I think they're a real football team, in spite of what happened in Ames. I think Arizona gets this done. 31-20. No, that's not right. That's not right. Defenses are too good. 24-23, nail biter in Tucson this week. I think BYU goes down. Bama at Missouri. This is going to be one of my best bets later. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized, you know what? Alabama is good. That's it. They're good. I don't believe that they are great. I think they have a couple of great wins. They have one great win and one good win over Vanderbilt. I'm not casting dispersions at that whatsoever. Some of us had Vandy as a top 12 team going into that matchup last week. It's me. I had that. But I'm concerned about Alabama's run defense. I feel like they miss Caleb Downs. I don't think they found somebody on the back end that can play quite like him. There isn't really anybody that can. But when you see Alabama give up these long running plays, it's not a fluke. It's gone on long enough to where I just think that's part of who they are. They've given up 181 rushing yards per game in the last 2 matchups, and they found a way to win. I think that comes to an end on Saturday in Columbia. If you haven't watched Amari Hardy run the football yet for this Missouri offense, you're about to. They are not going to come out and throw the ball 50 times a game. This is not an air raid system. I think Missouri has the ability to be incredibly balanced, but their ability to run the ball and create explosives is not a great matchup for Alabama. Remember last year, you know who got him in their bowl game? Michigan. What was Michigan? One-dimensional running the ball. Now this is a big moment for Eli Drinkowitz in Missouri, who I have dogged on for the last couple of seasons. I've said their record is overinflated. They're not as good as they look. They're winning a bunch of games with a really easy SEC schedule. I think this is the moment that Missouri finds a breakthrough. They're an underdog, and you better believe it'll be one of my best bets later on. But I think Alabama goes down. I just don't trust that defense on the road. They did it at home last week. They forced turnover Diego Pavia. That basically proved to be the difference in the game. And then they ran for a touchdown late to cover. It still stinks. It still really stings because that's the difference between me having a winning week and not. But talk about the best bets later. I want to pivot to Michigan at USC. Talked about this game a lot yesterday. Had a couple more thoughts. If Bryce Underwood is able to just get the passing game... Here, let me rephrase. If Bryce Underwood's support system can just be average, Michigan could win this game by 10 or more points because of the way they run the ball, control the clock, and keep it away from the USC offense. I just don't have any faith that they can do that. I really don't. But if they could, I don't know, help the guy out a little. If I'm Sharon Moore, and we know he's prone to do this, I might come out and run the ball 45 times, 45, 50 times. Have one of those games like against Penn State a couple years ago when Sharon Moore was filling in for suspended Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines. I think that you could see a game where Bryce Underwood is throwing less than 15 passes. I won't be surprised one bit. If Sharon Moore, who's not calling the plays, comes on the headset and says, hey, stop throwing the ball. Stop throwing the ball. Let's just run it. Let's see what that USC run defense can do. Statistically, they've been better. Here's your big test. Here's your big test, USC. You win this game, you're in my top 25. You probably fall out if you don't win this one at home. USC's 2.5-point favorite. I do think they get it done against Michigan. A couple games I haven't mentioned so far this week. Iowa State travels to Colorado. Huge game for the Cyclones. Huge game in the Big 12. They're not favored by a lot. In fact, let me just double check the line according to our friends over at FanDuel. It's Iowa State minus 2.5. That's another one of those games that I look at and go, that's weird. That's weird. That's strange. That's odd. Why is that number so small? Colorado's not a good team. They're winless in conference play so far. It's in Boulder, so that could be playing a factor here. Iowa State's got to go get this one. You lost the games to Cincinnati, who I've been impressed with so far this season. I've got them in my top 25. I don't think that Iowa State can make the Big 12 championship game if they lose this matchup. I think it's too early in the year. Anybody in the Big 12, with how much chaos is going to happen throughout the course of the season, nobody in the Big 12 here in mid-October can afford to have 2 losses and make their way to Arlington. That's just not going to happen. So you've got Iowa State playing urgently because they know that. You've also got them playing off of a loss last week in which their defense really struggled. Well, now you get Caden Salter and the Buffs, who kind of remind me offensively of what Brendan Sorsby and the Bearcats can do. You run a lot of stuff through your quarterback, who can run a little bit but has got a good arm, and he's got some good receivers. We know this Colorado passing game can be good. Things don't feel very good in Boulder right now. They are trending downward. You lose this game, problems for Iowa State. Major problems. So with that urgency in mind, I think Iowa State will go into Boulder and find a way to win the football game. Give me the Cyclones 27-20. I think they beat Colorado. Another one that I haven't talked about, flying under the radar this week. Flying under the radar for one of the more overrated teams in the AP poll, top 25, to me, LSU. Do I think LSU should be ranked? Yes, they're inside my top 20. Their defense is elite. I like them a lot. Can they figure out the offense? They're a pretty sizable favorite against South Carolina, 9.5 points, according to FanDuel, of course. South Carolina, though, team that came into this season with a lot of hopes, a lot of aspirations, it's not going very well. It is just straight up not going very well. They got outplayed by Missouri on the road. They got housed by Vandy on their home field. This would be a real turning point. And it was around this time last year that South Carolina had that moment that they turned the corner and then they accelerated and almost got themselves into the college football playoff. It was right around this time of the year. Remember, they won, 6-ish games to end the season, go 9-3. They were 3-3 and then won their last 6 games of the regular season. Well, here they are at 2-2 with an opportunity to go on the road, get an SEC conference win. And LSU, boy, they need to figure it out on offense. They just need to figure out how to get Garrett Nussmeier going. I don't understand. I really don't. It doesn't make that much logical sense how much LSU is struggling. But you know what? Not everything makes sense in college football this year. Why is Penn State not as good as they should be? LSU's offense not any good. Clemson got right against North Carolina last week for whatever that is worth, because that's a disastrous situation. LSU at home, I don't think they're going to win this game big. And I'm not putting this as one of my best bets, hence why I'm talking about it here. I think the Tigers will win because I trust the defense being at home at Death Valley, but I bet you it's close. 23-20, I'll take them over South Carolina. 2017, actually, low-scoring game. 2017, LSU's got to get that offense back on track. Let's get to the best bets. I'm going to keep trying. I don't know what else to do. I'm just go back, trust the process, and see what the heck happens. First, this episode brought to you by Mazda. Mazda's moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that will move the game forward is going to come in the Michigan-USC game. I think USC gets it done. I don't think it's going to be easy. Michigan can really run the football, but Jaden Mayava could have a coming out party. You go against this Michigan defense, you're unranked as USC playing at home. If you beat the number 15 team in the country, then guess what? You didn't just give revenge to the USC Trojans fan base for a game last year that they felt like they should have won. They probably should have. Michigan just, ran the ball right down their throats all game. Jaden Mayava is a guy who statistically is flying way under the radar in college football. But you beat number 15 Michigan, give them their first Big Ten loss, and I tell you what, you are going to get people's attention. And he has been playing really good football for Lincoln Riley and the Trojans. He could do more than just move the offense up and down the field. He could move USC's program forward with a win this week. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. Just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. My favorite bet of the week became my not as favorite bet of the week, though I am going to continue to include it. Texas A&M went from 6.5 point favorites to 7.5 point favorites. If that comes back to bite me in this pick, I'll be severely upset and disappointed. These odds, of course, provided by our friends at FanDuel. Texas A&M plays Florida. That just got it a big emotional win last week at home. Now they have to go on the road. Are these teams different than last year? Yeah, kind of. Not exactly the same. But the Aggies went into the swamp and led 20-0 at the half. I would love to see a score like that for the sake of getting the pick correct for Texas A&M. I'll swallow all of those points. I think they're going to win this game comfortably. Texas A&M is really good. You can make all the jokes you want about the Aggies, and they're the 8-4 Aggies, and they haven't been able to break through, and they can't do this. Well, guess what? Mike Elko is not Jimbo Fisher. He's a darn good football coach, and he's got a really good team. They have got an explosive passing game with Marcel Reed and Casey Concepcion amongst other weapons. When they run the ball well, they are darn near impossible to stop because Reed is such a weapon for offensive coordinator Colin Klein. And I just like Texas A&M way more than Florida. And I think people are going to rush to bet Florida in this game. I really do. Because I think they're going to look and go, oh no, Florida figured it out. Nope. Texas, I'm down on them. There's a reason that the next game I'll make as a best bet is Oklahoma plus 1.5 against Texas. But the first one that I like as much as any other this week is Texas A&M minus 7.5 against Florida. I think they beat the Gators. I think they do it handily. I'll take them 27-10. They knock off Florida at home and beat the Gators once more. Let's talk about Oklahoma and Texas again. Why the heck not? Because this is one of those games that gives me pause. Serious pause looking at when I go, oh, it's got to be this side. Especially with my track record this year. How can you reliably have faith in Arch Manning against this Oklahoma defense? How? What is the difference? Look at what Oklahoma's defense did to Bryce Underwood at Michigan, what they did to Jackson Arnold when they played Auburn. They held those teams under 20 points. What about this Texas offense makes you think that, yeah, they're going to get right here? How is Oklahoma a get-right spot? Whether you're blaming Arch Manning primarily or not as much for Texas's offensive woes, the only explanation for how they would figure it out here is that this is a rivalry game. But guess what? John Mateer doesn't play defense. There are no questions in my mind about how good Oklahoma is on that side of the football. So yeah, if you're giving me Oklahoma points, maybe it's a sucker's bet. Well, guess what? That's been my hallmark this year. I'm going to be a sucker. Even though I think Oklahoma has deserved their top 10 ranking, they have earned it with the wins that they have had. I don't necessarily think they are top 10 or national title caliber. So will it stun me if they lose? No, it will not. But do I expect them to win? 100%. Because I can't look at the Texas offense and say, yeah, I trust them. Do you trust them situationally? Do you trust them consistently? Like, what do you have to feel good about right now? Going up against Florida last week. I don't think Florida's defense is as good as Oklahoma's. Guess what? I just don't have the ability to trust Arch Manning. That's what it comes down to. I don't trust the Texas offense right now. This is not a get-right spot. So give me Oklahoma to win. Ugly game. I'll go like 23-10, 13-ish. It's just one of those ugly games. Taking the suckers bet right there. Again, fade these picks if you would like to make money with our friends over at FanDuel. How about the next one? I think Missouri is going to beat Alabama. I think the Crimson Tide's role is going to be slowed on the road this week. I know they went into Georgia and won. Very impressive. Kalen DeBoer's history against top 10 teams, very good. And Missouri is only a top 10 team in my poll, but we'll just leave that as it is right now. I think this is the moment that Missouri has a breakthrough. I have been impressed with what I have seen so far. Part of the reason we think Alabama's got it rolling is because they look good against Wisconsin and UL Monroe. And yet, a lot of the commentary I hear nationally is, Missouri hasn't beaten anybody yet. Well, okay. You're picking Alabama and saying they're great because of 2 games, one of which they easily could have lost. They didn't go outplay Georgia wildly. Georgia gave them some breaks in that moment. I think if Kirby Smart kicks a field goal, Georgia might wind up winning the game, and you feel very differently about this Alabama team. Last week against Vanderbilt, they didn't quite have enough to keep up. But guess what? Missouri does. I really think Missouri does. And if Amari Hardy breaks a couple of explosives in this game, which I fully anticipate he will, then Missouri getting 3.5 points, yeah. I mean, at worst, I need them to lose by a field goal to cover. I think they're going to win the game outright. So, yeah, Missouri plus 3.5, definitely one of the best bets of the week. Here's the biggest number that I'm looking at. Ohio State minus 14.5 at Illinois. My beloved Illini, who I picked 10-2 before the year, might wind up being 9-3. Might wind up being 8-4. They're a good team. They're not a great team. The problem I have with Illinois in this spot, even though they're at home with the opportunity of a lifetime for Brett Bielema and the Illini program, is that their physicality hasn't been good enough. USC pushed them around, particularly with what the Trojans did on offense, and they have not showcased. Indiana did the same thing. Those teams are not even where Ohio State is. Ohio State in the trenches this year. Ask Washington how easy it is to move the ball on this Buckeyes defense. Newsflash, it is really, really hard. Ask anyone else who's played the Buckeyes, Minnesota, for instance, whether or not they're figuring it out on the offensive side of the ball. I like Illinois. I'm going to keep them in my top 25 after they lose this game. I'm going to give their fans mood assessment a no vibes when they ultimately lose this game by 20-ish points, because this is fully what I expect to happen. I think Ohio State wins. Go 30-13. I think they comfortably go into Champaign and leave the Illini fans very, very disappointed. So, am I done? No, of course not, because I've still got one more pick and a bonus pick. Do not forget that Auburn's a 3.5-point dog against Georgia. I'm not picking the upset. I just can't get behind Hugh Freeze. I'd rather be wrong picking against Hugh Freeze to win a big game, a close game, than I would to be wrong picking Hugh Freeze to have accomplished said thing. Call it the James Franklin effect. Fool me once. Fool me once. Coaches that do that sort of thing. I think Georgia wins this game by a field goal, though. I think it's going to be that crazy. Wild things can happen at Jordan-Hare. We've seen it before. And Vegas trying to tell you something. I decide whether or not I listen to what the odds makers are trying to tell me. So give me Auburn plus 3.5. I think Georgia wins by a field goal. Pretty low scoring game. 3.5. 3.5. I almost picked Auburn to have a 2-point conversion in there. I thought about it, but we'll just go a little bit more traditional. 20-17. 20-17. Georgia wins, but that 3.5-point hook, I think, comes into play. And if you want a bonus pick this week, I will include it as an official pick. Oregon minus 7.5 at home against Indiana. Oregon's got the talent advantage here. Talked about this game earlier. They have to be able, they being Indiana, to pressure Dante Moore and the Ducks, but 27-17, I think Oregon gets it done. I think Oregon is really impressive. You can call me biased if you like. That's perfectly fine. So, my best bets, I would just love to get a winning week. Ohio State minus 14.5, Missouri plus 3.5, Oklahoma plus 1.5, Texas A&M minus 7.5, Auburn plus 3.5, and Oregon minus 7.5. Best bets of the week. Please, just deliver a 4-2 week. Pull it out, everybody. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time, and until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.